I, Alika Anderson,
do swear or affirm
that I will well
and truly discharge
the duties
of Commissioner of Clayton County in all matters which require
my official action
to the best of my knowledge
and skill.
and I will so act as in my judgment with the most conducive to the welfare and best interest of the entire county. And I have been a resident thereof for the time required by the Constitution and the laws of this state. I do further solemnly swear or affirm that I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public funds due this state or any political subdivision or authority thereof. And I am not the holder of any office or trust under the government of the United States of this state of any foreign state which I am prohibited from holding by the laws of the state of Georgia. And I am otherwise qualified to hold said office according to the Constitution of the United States and the laws of Georgia. And I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state. So you say, so help me God. One more. This one's short.
Okay. I, Alika Anderson,
A citizen of Clayton County, and being an employee of Clayton County, and the recipient of public funds for services rendered as such employee, do hereby solemnly swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Georgia. So help me God. First to congratulate you as Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you.
All right, before we begin our work session, I'd like to take a brief second to welcome our new District 1 Commissioner, Dr. Alika Anderson. Please give a round of applause. Would you like to have a brief statement?
I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I want to thank all of my constituents from District 1 that are present tonight. Thank you for being here. I want to thank all my family, friends, all elected officials. If you are present tonight, please stand up so I don't miss anyone. If we have any elected officials, please stand. Very good, so I can recognize everyone. Thank you. Again, thank you all for coming out tonight, and I appreciate your support.
All right, with that being said, again, welcome, Dr. Anderson. The meeting is officially being called to order. Are there any preliminary items for the next BOC meeting that any commissioner would like to discuss at this time? All right, hearing none, we will go straight into our work session. Our first presentation will be from Marta, reference to the BRT.
Good evening, Chairman Turner and members of the Commission, and congratulations on being seated tonight. I'm Manjeet Ranu. I'm the Chief of Capital Programs Expansion and Innovation for MARTA. I want to acknowledge the leadership of our Clayton County representatives. That's Director Roberta Abdul Salam and Director Katie Powers. I have here tonight a number of individuals from the team who are going to be part of making this presentation on this important project, which we're very proud of to get to this point as we're nearing the stage in the process where we would be entering into project development with the Federal Transit Administration to advance this project as our funding partner. And MARTA, of course, is Clayton County's operator of transit, the planner of transit, and also your funding partner and development partner for these types of projects. So with that, I want to turn it over to Grady Smith, a consultant for MARTA, to provide some context, and then we'll move from there to Shelley Peart, who's the planning director for MARTA, and we have Kevin Hurley to talk about finance. He's our finance director. So turn over to Grady, please.
Thank you, Manjeet. Good evening, Chairman Turner and fellow commissioners. As Manjeet said, it's exciting times for Clayton County and transit. I'm going to take a few minutes just to kind of remind you of some of the information we've recently shared regarding the overall transit program, MARTA's overall transit program here in Clayton County. We had an opportunity to meet with each and every one of you individually and talk about the program and give a brief update. I'm going to hit some of those highlights. This first slide, if I can get it to
It's a little sensitive.
stop. You got it? There we go. Illustrates what we talked about in our conversations about MARTA's commitment, and that commitment made within the context of the Rapid Transit and Assistance Agreement, 15th Amendment. This slide highlights all of the various projects and programs and activities MARTA is engaged in and has committed to. As you can see across the bottom of this chart, every single one of those pieces of program is moving forward. We talked about the existing local bus service and the expansion of that service and rolling that out, and that's on time and is being completed. We've talked about the issues associated with the high-capacity transit along the Norfolk Southern Corridor, and we're continuing to work on that. We also talked about, and what we're going to really focus in on tonight, is the South Lake Bus Rapid Transit Project, and we heard from each and every one of you that expanding high-capacity transit within Clayton County as quickly as possible and doing that best in class was a major thing that we needed to get done. Commissioner Franklin spoke specifically about this corridor and the importance of the mobility along State Route 85 and connecting into the College Park area. So you're going to hear a lot more about that. The bus stop and amenities program is moving forward. A number of shelters are being developed around the county, and we talked about the importance of the first mile, last mile connections to those shelters, be it sidewalks, safe crossings of our major arterials throughout the county. We also talked about the mobility hub at the Justice Center, the Quick Bill Center initiative that was put in, and now moving that forth into a full-blown mobility hub. And then finally, we talked about the O&M facility, $158 million investment that MARTA is making there in Forest Park, as well as other facilities around the county. Real quickly, and you'll hear more about the funding program moving forward, but this is just to highlight some of the great work that MARTA's been doing, working with the federal government and securing funding to advance projects in Clayton County. As you can see, MARTA's been awarded $13 million to advance the O&M facility. We will likely be seeking additional funding from the federal government in fiscal year 2023, additional dollars. There's also been a number of earmarks identified in the discussions that's ongoing now around Build Back Better in Washington with Congressman David Scott identifying an earmark for $5 million for that Justice Center project that I talked about. And then also Senator Warnock identifying another $5 million to go towards the operating and maintenance facility. MARTA is also applying for a grant to support the Transit Supportive Development and Economic Development Initiative that we talked about, the Transit Supportive Land Use. And then, as you'll hear later from Kevin, the importance of advancing the South Lake BRT and doing that through a potential small starts application to the federal government in 2024. In addition to all of this, MARTA has been a big supporter of the fuel tax issue and bringing those additional funds to Clayton County to help advance the overall program. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shelley, and she's going to talk in detail about the South Lake BRT project.
Thank you, and thank you all for having us here. It's really a pleasure. I know it's my first time meeting with you all, and you're probably more familiar with Mrs. Roberson and maybe Olin coming to give presentations, and they're wonderful colleagues of mine, and hopefully I won't mess this up too much tonight. This is not my project, but I'm directing everybody, and so I'm here with you tonight. So with that, I have to put the glasses on too. So, the schedule. Where are we on the schedule? So today we are in, or just about getting into, environmental and preliminary engineering. I've been told to kind of rush through this, so I will. As you can see, the dates that we're trying to get to operation by 2026. The proposed alignment. I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar with the alignment. We're contemplating tonight just phase 1, which takes us from College Park Station all the way down through to, take the glasses off for a minute, South Lake Mobility Center. While I'm going through this, if there are questions, please stop me. If not, we can get questions at the end. I want to point out that the proposed alignment does have mixed traffic in certain areas, and in other areas we're going to have dedicated lanes, and this is going to help our headways along for the BRT system. Connections. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. I'm totally messed up. Did I just? Y'all shouldn't give me technology. I am not. Right. Okay, so that's, okay, next one. Connections. Okay, BRT connections. I think everybody, again, is familiar with the alignment. What we're trying to do is to move and improve everyday lives, get people faster. We have service that exists right now, but it's generally from 30 to 40 minutes, an hour. And we're trying to improve, so we're going to go to 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes, you'll see a lovely vehicle. We're thinking right now it's going to be an electric vehicle, but that could change. But again, what we're trying to do is get you something that is like light rail, but it's on tires. But it's going to be just as fast, just as efficient, and trying to get folks, as our notes say here, instead of standing around waiting for a bus, and it's going to be much faster. Next slide. Another, probably even the most important thing, is the economic development potential that BRT brings. I think from the studies that we've seen over the entire country, when you introduce a BRT, or even light rail, or any kind of high capacity, it brings developers in. And so that's what we're hoping that will happen. We have a few renderings here of what that could possibly look like. A mix of townhomes and different uses that you can have at these sites. Next slide, please. Thank you. The design, okay. The design, and again, this is something that once we go along and we hit different jurisdictions, you may have different requirements for what it's going to look like, or sidewalk requirements may not be 6 feet as shown here. We may have some areas where you don't necessarily have an 11-foot lane. The intent is to try to make sure that we have a safe environment for pedestrians. So those are things that could change, but looking at what this segment looks like right now, it's a possibility. So, next slide. And here, I want to introduce Mr. Hurley, and he's going to give us a quick overview of the project costs. Thank you.
Okay, right now we're looking at phase 1 of the project, and the capital costs for it are $290.2 million. And year of expenditure dollars, it's $336 million. The maximum amount of federal funding that we would anticipate is $99.9 million for this size of project. Note the year of expenditure dollars are escalated by 3% a year, and that these costs are identified currently but are subject to change as we start the build out and if we run across anything that changes the pricing. Next slide. Okay, yeah, this is in a little different format, but yeah, my office, we do the modeling for the project, so we take all of the revenue associated with the Clayton County 1% sales tax that comes in, federal revenues to assist, federal formula revenues, and we compare that to the expenditures that we're going to utilize to not only build the project, but run the project into the future. So the first item on here is in the assumptions is that we're getting our sales tax projections from the Georgia State University Economic Forecasting Center. And certainly COVID-19 had an impact initially on our sales tax receipts, but I'll say that the sales tax has bounced back fairly well and has been very robust, and we're actually ahead of where we were at the end of 2020, and we saw a dip in 2021, but finished the year ahead of 2019. So the recovery has come back. The first 3 months of this fiscal year were about $13–14 million ahead in sales tax collections. So sales tax looks very good. Federal participation, as mentioned earlier, we anticipate on the Clayton State Road 54 HCT, right now we're anticipating $302 million to support that project. The South Lake BRT project, about $100 million. The Clayton County O&M facility, $8 million, but we've also got this other commitment from Senator Warnock that's going to increase that to 13. And we've also got some assistance on the Justice Center, and that's about $7 million. The next page, I'm going to show you the model that we ran, and I'll try not to get into a lot of detail on it, but there is debt that would be required to build the projects in the schedule that we put forth, but that debt would be paid off before the sales tax were to sunset. Next slide. This is what we call our sources and uses slide. At the top of this slide, we see a beginning balance. That beginning balance of $148.3 million is what's available in the Clayton Reserve to build out these capital projects at the end of June. And we see the capital sales tax, federal funds, and debts issue to support the build out of all the projects. And it's cash flowed over the next 10 years. This is only for presentation purposes. Those cash flows go on until the expiration of the sales tax. But the projects noted are all to be built within the next 10 years. So that's the model period we were looking at. The expenditure element down at the bottom, it depicts these 4 major projects and the total sources to support them of $1.1 billion and the expenditures of about $1 billion. And so basically what this is telling you is all these projects are fundable within the timeline that we've prescribed them. Next slide.
Thank you, Kevin. And so with that, Commission, Marta is here to answer your questions and receive comments. We are asking to be on your next regularly scheduled meeting for the Commission to consider a resolution to communicate your position on this project, which we would ask for an endorsement of the locally preferred alternative, which is going to be proposed to the MARTA board, as you saw in this presentation. So that slide here illustrates the next steps and the roadmap toward the crucial entry into the federal process. So with that, thank you for your time, and we're here to discuss.
Well, thank you and your team for the presentation and the updates. Are there any questions for the MARTA team from any commissioner?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamburg.
Yeah, there was a mention of a debt being assessed or whatever. Is that a debt for Clayton County or a debt for MARTA?
Yes, Ms. Hamburg, the debt would be MARTA's debt that would be satisfied by the sales tax that we're already collecting on behalf of that Clayton County is providing MARTA to do all of this work. So Clayton County is not a party to the debt. MARTA is a party to the debt.
Okay. And someone gave, in that presentation, we saw renderings of buildings and all around the BRT and all. Are those buildings that MARTA will be putting up in Clayton, or are those things that Clayton County has to do as far as economic development is concerned?
It's right up there on the slide. So that's illustrative of what could happen if the private sector generally would be the one to do that type of development around a station. So what's different about a BRT as opposed to a bus route, it's a fixed infrastructure investment. So there's a lot of money that goes into building the BRT. It's about $300 million for this project. That communicates to the private sector permanence that this is a major public sector infrastructure investment, and that removes some of the risks for the private sector in considering where to invest private dollars to do development, to do economic development. So that's an example of what perhaps the private sector would do around a station that if it was consistent with your zoning.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin.
First, I want to say thank you all for your presentation. Secondly, I want to acknowledge Gail Franklin is out in the audience. Thank you for being here today. She is with the ATL Transit Link Authority. But I'm not sure if we were able to get a total clear answer to Commissioner Hamford's question, because we do know that MARTA is investing quite a bit of money around your stations in Atlanta with the train stations. There's this whole push for that. But because of the fact that Clayton County is no longer in position to have rail, based upon what you all have relayed to us, then how are we going to begin to see some of those benefits? So as Commissioner was asking earlier, who's going to lead those efforts? Who's going to make those investments? Are the investments that you're making only going to Atlanta, or will they come into development around these areas here in Clayton County?
Well, thank you for your question. If I understood correctly, the investments that we've talked about today we're showing are fundable from the commitments that we've made in the 15th Amendment to our agreement to serve Clayton County. This being one of them, a transit project that will be determined through a similar process that we're going through here for the high-capacity transit corridor along the State Route 54 corridor, as well as the operations and maintenance facility that is being built, that will be built in Clayton County as well, among other more distributed investments like the bus improvements, bus stops, bus shelters, and we're also interested in supporting safe routes to transit in Clayton County as well.
Okay, I'm clear on that, but I will talk offline because it still doesn't answer who's leading the charge for the economic development. Because again, you all are investing heavily in train stations in Atlanta and developing around those areas. Well, Clayton's not going to have an opportunity to participate in any of that development because we don't have train stations. So I'll look to have a conversation with you offline.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And then maybe I missed it. Can you review the timeline of this project again?
Sure, we can scroll back to that slide. There it is. So there's the timeline. So we're toward the end of 2021, of course, and the next step would be project development. After that, we would enter the final design process, begin construction in 2024, and operating 2026.
So will we receive a more detailed timeline at a later date? Because these are just, years and target dates. It doesn't really give us what you're actually completing in the deadline to complete each one of these steps within its process. That's what I'm missing here. It's not as detailed as I would hope to see.
Great question and comment. So as we enter into the project development process, then we get more into the engineering and we get that level of precision, and so we can brief that with you and the commission.
But you're going to ask the board to make a decision without that information.
We are asking the board to communicate to MARTA as well as the Federal Transit Administration and the region as well its preference for a transit investment in this corridor, and 2026 is the target completion date for the project to operate it.
Okay, final statement. As commissioners, I wasn't on this board when we voted to bring MARTA into Clayton, just letting you know. But as a commissioner, we have taken a lot of heat because of promises that have been made by MARTA. And these timelines look similar to the previous timelines that have been presented to us without specific information provided. So I just want us to note that we're once again asked to make a decision on promises. And for me, there needs to be more information. There needs to be detailed information, a detailed timeline. I've seen other projects where they're more detailed. And for me to be able to step out on a limb to our community to say that we back you all doing what you say you're going to do, this is too scarce for me.
Okay, understood, and appreciate your willingness to hold MARTA accountable. And we do look for a unanimous vote to support this project moving forward and communicate as such to the MARTA Board of Directors and, importantly, the Federal Transit Administration. So thank you.
I look forward to additional information. Thank you.
Understood.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Commissioner Davis?
When will you be conveying this to the community? Your timelines and everything that you all plan on doing? Because I've spoken with you all today, and I asked you all to come out to my community meetings because I want that conveyed to District 1 and what you plan on doing as far as this is concerned for MARTA.
We are happy to come to those meetings in the community, and there will be ongoing community engagement throughout the process, all the way through construction until we open it, and then after that we'll be marketing to encourage ridership on the project as well.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, I want to go back to the federal funding opportunities. The $10 million, the $5 million from Congressman Scott and Senator Warnock, the $5 million. Have those already been approved and appropriated for this project?
Not yet. That is subject to the bill being approved by Congress and signed by the President.
Okay, I just want to be sure of that. And if that is approved and becomes here for the funding source, will that replace, I guess, the $10 million towards what Clayton County is putting in from the 1 cent? Or will that monies be deferred from the MARTA side of
It is part of the overall funding package, the assumptions that go into that funding package.
Okay, because looking here with the construction beginning in 2024, those funds will be set aside. The other question is, with our 1 cent that we put in, there's a timeline where we could begin to use those funds for another source if we so see fit. Is that correct?
I'm going to have to defer to Kevin if you know the answer to that. I'm still only 5 months into my tenure here at MARTA.
No problem.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
to my knowledge, that I don't know the answer to that, and but I can certainly look that up and get back to you tomorrow.
That would be greatly appreciated, because with rail, in a sense, being thrown out, and I believe from the initial onset, that was the big discussion of what really our citizens wanted as far as MARTA coming in. And with that now being thrown by the wayside, we want to make sure that our investment is protected in some form or fashion here.
Okay, I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Again, thank you for being here and for your presentation, and we'll be looking forward to hearing from y'all soon.
Thank you.
All right, next up, new administration building update from Mr. Ben Hopkins.
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chair, Board. This evening we're going to talk about the new county administration building and give you an update on where we stand in the process, and we'll give a recommendation on the location placement of said building. one of the topics that we often talk about is accountability. So before we go further, I wanted to recognize the core team of folks who are involved in the process. Marty Fox, my assistant director of planning, design, and construction, operates currently as our primary project manager. I'm also involved in every single meeting related to this building. And from Nelson Worldwide, our senior project manager is Steve DeFilippi. Our project sponsor is our COO, Mr. Stanford. We meet with him on a every 2-month basis, or when we have questions that we need asked to get forward progress on the facility. The project. The County Administration Building was approved in the 21 SPLOST program by the Clayton County voters. It is a designated bond project, so we designated $40 million. We anticipate the building itself being 85,000 square feet, 3-story building. The departments that we've identified to be in the building are the ones that are currently in 112 Smith Street, that being the BOC, COO's office, legal, and finance. We're also going to bring human resources, communications, and we've got a library service center that we're looking to make available to the public. So where are we with the project? We've done site selection and diligence. We've identified a couple of parcels that we own within Clayton County. We had to make sure it was in the city limits of Jonesboro because that's where you all have to operate. We want to make sure that it was a county-owned property so we don't have to spend money on trying to get something when we already own a lot of property. We've identified several parcels that may work. We've done some test bores. We've done a utility audit to make sure that it has gas and electric and all the different things that we're going to need, sewer. And we've done some feasibility studies. The location that we've come up with in the recommendation that we're bringing to you is right next to us. If we take the parcel of 120 Smith Street and 124 Smith Street, the Board of Education last night approved to donate a small parcel of land that was in between the two parcels to donate to Clayton County so we could build the building. That's part of the diligence that we're doing, so that's one of the reasons why we don't bring constant updates, because we got to get things out of the way to make sure it's clear for you all. The recommendation is to demolish 120 and 124 Smith Street. That's our HR building and Jonesboro Library. And we build the new county administration building on the corner lot facing the Lee Street Park. Justification. Jonesboro is building their new city hall on the other side of Lee Street Park. We have Lee Street Park right there. They've just done the Broad Street redevelopment about a block away. In the existing Jonesboro Library, we have a lot of HVAC issues. One of the major HVAC units has failed. The other one is working and keeping it environmentally friendly for the stuff that's in the space, but it's not really good enough for people. The existing ductwork is old and it's run improperly for our current standards, so we'd want to go through and fix that. The roof on the building, we have a quote from Garland, who's our roofing representative, saying it could be up to $700,000 in our current environment to replace the roof on a 7,000 square foot building. For context, when we replaced the roof on this building 4 years ago, it was $280,000. Also in the Jonesboro Library, the restrooms are very small, they're not ADA compliant. The HR building doesn't have an elevator, so you're not ADA compliant dealing with people who need to go upstairs to talk to Director Ambles and other meetings. And it has some other smaller issues, but it's not the highest and best use for the county. So the concept, because I know that's what everybody wants to see, is the pictures. This is what the first floor is looking like, and this is an early design. This is not a final design. We're still working through the logistics and making sure everything is together. We've met with these departments to see what they're looking for long-term from a programmatic standpoint. If you come in on the left side of the picture that you see, that's the building lobby. It's a 2-story lobby. There is security access to get into the space. You have a public corridor that has an elevator, public restrooms, and right at the front of the building is that library media center. That could be open alone by itself without the rest of the building being open. We could lock up the rest of the building. The county commission chambers, that's a 300 person auditorium. It's close to twice the size of the one we currently have. We've also put an executive session conference room right off of the existing boardroom so that you all don't have to walk all the way up the hall to have your executive sessions. You can go right out, come right back in. Hopefully that will facilitate some quicker meetings. We've also placed some restrooms back there because I know in some of your conversations, they may extend, and so you don't want to have to leave and go into the public space to come back. On the main floor, we have the communications office, as well as the print shop and the studio. We go up a floor, we have finance and human resources. The elevator is still in that middle section as they come up. The public can have access to this. We can put any kind of security that we need to prevent people from coming up after hours if we're shutting down the building, or if we decide we're going to open up just a library on the weekend, we can shut off that elevator so you don't have access. Card swiper, those types of things. I want to point out that there is a space too below at the top in the orange. That's because the boardroom is going to be taller. It's a 2-story boardroom. You get to the top, there's nothing above the boardroom. It cuts back on our cost in terms of having to roof the building. We have the COO suite where his administrative staff is with him. In the yellow, you can see that's where the commissioners are all. That's on the side of the street where you have Smith Street. Lee Street is to the left. So the chairman is in that corner office. If you'll notice, all of the commissioners have your own restroom. That is not because I want to make sure that y'all have your own restroom, but I want you to have a space that if you have to brush your teeth or if you have to change clothes before you come to a commission meeting, you have that space and you can do that in your privacy. Legal office is also up there, and the clerk. There is some shared space for us to have expansion as we grow. One of the things that people do in these buildings is they start to cut that space out, and then 10 years from now, you don't have what you need to grow. Mm-hmm. The next couple of pictures, again, these are very early in the design, but I wanted to provide you some context of the building. They're going to look kind of like Legos. It's called a block and stack. Well, this is the roof. So the next set of pictures. This is a picture of the corner of Lee Street and Smith Street. This is a concept. That's going in the front door. We're going to come back a little bit more into that corner so you can see that we are extending to the street. So you're taking away some of that green space. We're creating a nice big walk space. Along Lee Street, there's some curbside parking. And there is a bike lane you can see as the car comes along Smith Street there. That white line designates a bike lane. This is coming up on the building so you can see Lee Street Elementary in the background. There's the curb parking, and the commissioners all have a nice view looking out at Smith Street and potentially seeing what's happening over on Broad Street if there's an activity. Another look at the facility from Smith Street. Oh. This is incredibly sensitive, Jason. This is, again, a version of the view of the building so that you can see what's happening. And this is coming back from the Lee Street Elementary point of view, thinking about children that are at Lee Street Elementary School right now, seeing this and thinking about how cool it would be to be a part of government and being able to one day sit in the chairman's chair or one of the other commissioners' chair. What you don't see here is enough parking. Behind the building is going to be employee parking, making that secure parking so that in the event of commission meetings, those types of things, you all can park and not have to worry about somebody coming out after the meeting to deal with you because you made a decision they didn't like. That'd be secured parking. Behind Smith Street, if you look to the right of the picture, that existing parking lot there, that's where we plan to put a parking deck to support both our current Smith Street building, which we will keep, and the new admin building, and any activities that are happening at Lee Street Park or Broad Street. It makes it a walkable destination downtown Jonesboro. I know that was very quick. Our plan is to bring a recommendation at your next board meeting for you to approve that as our designated location for the new admin building. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions from Mr. Hopkins?
Yes, I do.
Yes, sir. Davis.
Great presentation. This would just be for approval of the location, not the
That's right.
architectural renderings or floor plans or anything like that.
That's correct. We are in very early in concept. Before we can get into the actual architectural renderings and ensuring that everything is perfect, we got to know a location. And I don't want to move forward with a location, bring it to you and say, here's where I am, and you all say,
You didn't tell us that.
you didn't tell us where you were going.
All right. That was pretty much it for me.
So we want to make sure that we're going through the process and you all have the involvement and you all have to say. As we get more in depth, we will continue to have conversations and more conversations with each of you. But we didn't want to pull you in too early because we're not at that point yet.
Great. So you just answered my second question, so I'm done.
Years ago, the HR building used to be occupied by the school system.
Yes, ma'am.
So what space is it that you're talking about that belongs to them? Or is it that same space, or is it between that building and the library?
It's straight between the building and the library. Coming out from Lee Street Elementary, if you look at the picture where the playground equipment is, the blue next to the green, they approved to donate it to us last night. There was a parcel of land, about 0.9 acres worth of land that cut straight through to Smith Street.
Okay, I'm thinking out here now.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm looking out here. So is it, when we walk out here, anyway, it's not the building?
No, it's not the building at all. No, it's
Okay,
not the building.
that's what
If you were to walk out the doors and you looked out, the drive that goes right between the library and that is actually that was owned by the school board. They donated to us last night.
Okay, so no Jonesboro Library again anymore? That library will be,
The library building itself will be gone. We've begun conversations with Director Lett on what services they could provide to the public. It'll be on the first floor, available for anybody to come in, easily accessible. Right through the main doors, you go through security, you can go in. There's some concepts of some media. Currently they use the Pines Library system, so you can order a book. You potentially could go pick up the book, drop off the book there. We've talked about computers being in there, computer lab available for the public to come in, applying for jobs, looking at what they need to look on the internet. One of the things we want to be very sure about is in the event that space was going to work different hours than the 8 to 5 that finance or HR would work, we could shut off the rest of the building and that could still be available to the public.
so we're not looking for another space for the Jonesboro Library?
That's not part of this project.
Are we doing that? Are we gonna replace the library?
I don't think we have the funding for another library in Jonesboro, but I'm gonna see y'all.
Yes, Commissioner. So in the 2021 program, there is an additional library, but of course that was slated for District 1. And of course we hadn't determined a location there. Part of the discussion has been talking to other funders to look at a partnership potentially. The Rosenwald School came up as a potential location, and we're still talking to the City of Jonesboro as well about some potential locations there. But as Director Hopkins alluded to, we don't have a funding source to do the 2021 library in District 1 and do an additional library on top of that. So we thought it was prudent to add an element of the library into the admin building.
And I don't think the residents of Jonesboro want us to bother with that Rosenwald building. It's historical. And also, please, let's think something else other than bothering that. If we were to do something, with that building, I would want us to, to remain.
Make it a historical site.
Exactly.
Got it. Well, I'm only providing perspective to some citizens that offered up some other locations to consider. And so we had landed on an additional location to replace the Jonesboro Library, but we are in conversations with the city and other partners about what might be a potential opportunity.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I want to focus on the process, and it kind of piggybacks on what Commissioner Hambrick said. I understand that operations does fall under a different area, but as I look through our county code, the opening, closing of buildings has to come before this board. So when we are talking about now all of a sudden presenting the building, we knew that there was going to be a new building. But at the same token, this board had not voted on a specific place for that building.
Correct.
And we're not voting on renderings. But yet and still, there's been some level of communication to the public as if it's been brought to this board. So, in focusing on process, I want to say, number one, let's be very careful how we communicate the Board of Commissioners. If it does not come before this board for a vote, then it comes directly from someplace else other than this board. It's totally unfair to us as commissioners for us to find out from mayors and from everyone else that, number one, our library is shut down. Number two, that there are plans to demolish it, and now we're finding out about it several months later and bringing it before the board. That's totally not something that I would say is in line with either best practices or for the best communication for the board members who are going to have to answer these questions. So that's the first thing I do need to put on record. Secondly, when we're looking at these renderings, this is really good that you all are bringing it before us, but I would like for us to be able to look a little bit further, number one, to make sure that we replace that library. It's only fair to the community, and the community needs to be involved.
Understood.
Any other questions?
I do have one more, I'm sorry. And let's make sure whatever we build is not leaking like our new facilities. It doesn't make any sense, and I'm sorry, there's no better way to put it. It doesn't make any sense to spend taxpayer dollars and to hire companies, spend millions of dollars with companies. And we bring these companies in, but yet and still, we got buildings that are leaking, that are going on and on with issues with air conditioning. The same problem that you're telling me about this library is the same problem we're dealing with a new facility. So I really want to make sure you all are on your A game and that you all are responsible, because we're responsible to the citizens, and that you're going to be responsible to make sure that we're not passing the buck. It's not my fault. It's not, you have to present the information to us. We have to have some level of trust in you. So we need to dig a little deeper into this project.
I absolutely agree with that, Commissioner. That's why I started the presentation with the core team. I told you all the last time I was before this board that when it comes to SPLOST projects, that the buck stops with me, and that I am the Clayton County person who is responsible. I can tell you that there's not a member of this team that has told anybody of our location. Where that got out to the public, I can't speak to that. But I can tell you that it didn't come from Ben Hopkins or Marty Fox or Dietrich Stanford. It's out there. We wanted to be prudent and come and tell you this was our recommendation. If this board comes back at our board meeting and says, no, we don't want to go there, then we will bring you a different location. We've done some diligence on other locations, but this is a location that I brought to this board 4 years ago, and I said, this is a library that has severe problems. I'm currently dealing with other buildings that have had problems for 25 years and longer. So we are doing our diligence, and that's why it takes us a little longer to get through the process, because we want to make sure that we are checking all of the boxes before I bring you information.
Okay. Can I say one more thing? So when we're looking at different places for the library, I know you told us about the Rosenwald School. Where are some other potential places, and can you all start to look for those potential places, that where we can put this library? Because we all know that libraries are important for our students, for our kids, for our community. And so we need to make sure that we have somewhere for our children, for everyone in the community to be able to, work within our library. So please just give me, what are some of the other potential places that we can look at?
Commissioner, a couple of things that's going into that discussion is what type of library do we want?
Okay.
One of the things we're looking at is getting out of our old footprint. Mm-hmm. Having a library that you go in and there's a bunch of books, and we're going to more digitized opportunities. They're looking at immersive opportunities where you have interaction. And so one of the things we talked about, one of the libraries that we looked at as a potential opportunity is looking at what we call the Apple Store concept. And the deal there is that when you walk in, it's an open platform, and you have storytelling in the background, so you have visuals behind them. You have the storyteller up front, and imagine school-age kids sitting in this circle and seeing the actual interactive opportunity in that space. So we've been very fortunate with Director-Lett and some of the resources the library system have provided, whether it's ebooks, whether it's having MiFis, it's trying to figure out ways they have a drone class at the library. They do stuff that's out of the tradition for that space. So one of the things we're looking at is to make sure that whatever the pivot point for this board as to the type of function they want that library to have, it's easier for us to then to determine the location for that type of facilities. But primarily because it is stationed in Jonesboro, we wanted to make sure we looked at property that's within this area, so therefore we're not duplicating some other efforts throughout the county.
So can I ask you all to bring the board back some properties, start looking for those properties, bring them back to the board, so we will, look at the different types of libraries, know where you want to actually put these libraries, and also bring us also the different types of libraries, because we all need to know. Everybody doesn't know the digital era of libraries. Everybody does, and some people may want to have books in there. People want to bring their kids in. So bring all of that to the board, so we will know what we're looking at, what's the potential, and where we're going.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like for us to take it a step further, and let's go out and look at some of the other libraries.
Yes.
I've been blessed, and I'm not trying to be, with my real job, this is my real job, Lord forgive me, but with my career, I still travel throughout the state, and I see majority of the libraries that are being built. I think it would be beneficial for us as a board to be able to look at some other libraries so that we can see them, and then we can decide what we want, as opposed to staff providing us what you all feel is best, because we know the community, we're talking to the community, and then that way we can relay that information back to the community so that they can be involved in that process. The other thing I want to mention, I hear a lot about the digital divide, and it's great, but I'm not sure if you all are aware, but Clayton County actually is the largest user of the Pine system in all of the state of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
We owe it to our community to make sure that we take our time and do this right. So our parents are still checking out books, hardcover books, and they're doing all the other digital things as well. But there is a mix, and I think that it would benefit our board to go take a look at some options, and as our newest commissioner even stated, and look at some other places that we can look at putting that library. Let's not put the cart before the horse.
Well, let me go on record. Let me apologize if it was interpreted that I was saying do away with books. I'm just saying that there were some other alternatives that we were looking at to try to make our library system even more expansive. So point well taken, and we'll try to put together some tours that the board can go.
And I do have one more thing I do have to add. It goes to communication and process and procedure again. Every board member has somebody appointed to the library. Every board member up here. I know I have constant communication. The board members on that side were left in the dark just like us. We've got to do a better job on communicating on both ends.
Any other questions?
Okay.
I do have one.
Commissioner Davis.
Was there ever a decision made to get rid of that library?
No, sir.
Because I've gotten calls from many relating to that. Are you getting rid of the library? And my comment has been, there's been no decision made yet on that. But Commissioner Hamburg just brought something up. Is that building a historic site?
The Jonesboro Library?
The Rosenwald.
The Rosenwald is. The Rosenwald is a historic site.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It definitely.
Yeah, not to beat a dead horse, but I've had conversations with the mayor and so forth, and I reassured her and everyone else I spoke to that this board hasn't made a decision one way or the other. We support a library in some form or fashion in this community. So that needs to continue to be the message until this board ultimately comes up with a decision as to if and where, well, not if, but where a new library should go. So are there any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. All right, next up is Sizemore presentation on Mountain View. I believe Ms. Rocker is going to give us a presentation or introduce.
I am. Good evening, Chairman and Board of Commissioners. I will bring before you Mr. Bill de St. Aubin, who is the architect and chief town planner of the Sizemore Group. He is presenting to you a master plan done by his firm in 2018 of the 750 acres that is known as Mountain View. We took a driving tour of it over the summer, and as we move forward now with momentum to get Mountain View developed, this will be a good time for him to present what that master plan was, and then at a later date see if the Board of Commissioners would like to adopt this plan. So at this time I'll introduce Mr. Bill de St. Aubin. I will say that they did the Mountain View presentation and the Terra Old Dixie presentation at the same time, and he is prepared to present both. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us to present the work we did for you, I think in 2000. 18th. So hopefully it's fresh enough on my mind. This is a picture of actually the two study areas. You can see the airport and the mountain view is the top, and then the other study down closer to the hotel is down at the bottom. But the Flint River is the one kind of thing they have in common that connects it all. Next. Oh, do I hit the? Thank you. So you can see the site is, it's a premium site in terms of its location to the world's busiest airport, the international terminal, access to 285. It's an incredible site. It has complexities, and I'd be happy to talk about those as we go through, but it has a lot of opportunity as well. Next. Let me go through it's 495 acres, 359 parcels, 80 property owners, and that's probably the biggest complexity is the 80 property owners. This is the vision we came up with after listening to all the key stakeholders. An international mixed-use office district provides a transit-oriented and walkable mixed-use complementary to the world's busiest airport. We worked in a walkable grid system, set up a MARTA station that would make this whole area, you can get on the train and then get off and walk to any destination. Also, we looked at Conley Road streetscape, Conley Road to I-675, and then Gilbert Road improvements, and I think you've already started some of those, and I-285 interchange and trails and parks. The concept plan has kind of 6 major districts. At the top in the light blue is a mixed-use makers and advanced manufacturing. That's next to some of the existing industrial. And then there's an educational component down close to the airport. We were thinking aviation or something related to the airport industry. And then an international mixed-use office district. And then this is all based on a market study that we done in 2018. If anything, the market for makers, kind of advanced manufacturing, has increased in the United States. The mixed-use residential is still going very strong. And then we had a regional mixed-use retail. There's a need for another outlet center, kind of high-end outlet center, and we've done case studies of airports around the world, and you see that often, and that's in that kind of environment. And you have really good visibility right off of 285, so that's why I was put in that location. The international mixed use was put close to where the MARTA would stop. And then there was regional entertainment. That's Steve Berman's property. I think he really wanted to do industrial on it, so that might have changed. That might be one of the changes that came. And it was an overlay district, so we weren't really taking away. Our recommendation was not to take away any of the existing zoning, but to make an overlay that would incentivize what you guys want. Next. You can see the aeronautics education tech incubator, hotel conference center up front. In the maker space, we kind of drew some of these typical block sizes you see for those kind of components. And then, of course, a hotel was near the entertainment district. And there's still a big need for hotels around the airport. They're a good revenue source also for your hotel motel tax. And then there's the TOD is probably kind of the most exciting area that feels like an international destination when you'll see some of the renderings. Next. There is kind of, where you see that green space along 285, there's a floodplain area, it's a low area with a stream, so you probably can't build there anyways, but you'd want to thin it out so you can see some of the retail district. This is it massed out in 3D. Next. And then this is the rendering of how it could all connect to the airport. And when you get off the transit, you could be in the middle of a green with the office space around. I think I've covered this a little bit, but the proposed zoning was an overlay to allow these uses to happen. Heights you know, the height isn't too bad there. When you're close to the airport, you wonder about that, but you had enough to go to like 18 stories as you get back towards away from the property, towards 285. And we recommended an FAR of 3.0. That's pretty intense, but this is a great site. And then you need to develop some design standards so you get consistency. Those are kind of next steps: streetscape, architecture, public art, and probably transit. The only thing maybe more important than transit to making this happen, it would be assembling the property under one owner. Next. This is some of the uses that are allowed in each one of those. And the minimum two with exception was trying to, there was a real concern that this is a prime site for jobs, for high-end jobs, for good jobs in Clayton County. And it could, the industrial demand is so high that the whole thing could go industrial if you let it. So I think some of that two-story was trying to minimize the encroachment of industrial in this area.
Define the density, FAR, what that stands for.
FAR?
Yeah, the under density, just define it.
Yeah, that's floor area ratio. So that means if you have an acre, which is 43,000 square feet is an acre of land, 43,560. That means with a 1 FAR, you could build a building that's 43,000 square feet on that acre. It doesn't have to be all one story. It could take up half the land, a third of the land. But the FAR is your floor area ratio. So a 3 would be on a 1 acre of land, you could build about 120,000 square foot. It's a standard, sorry, I've been COVID tested. I had to test myself to go on the link trip tomorrow, so I passed, but I have been coughing a lot lately. But anyways, it's a standard in the industry for, and really most suburban environments are like 0.5, and a lot of urban environments can get up to 1.5 to 2 to 3. When you go much over that, then you start getting into high rises. Does that answer the question?
Mm-hmm.
So, next. So the short-term 100-day, I guess 100 days has passed since then. This was our short-term action plan. Development Authority County to approve the master plan. I think they did. And I think we presented. I don't know if you ever approved it. It's a different board now. So I think that would be a great next step. You may have slight modifications that you need to take care of, but it's a great plan to approve and get behind. That's usually the first step in any development coming, is making sure you guys support the plan. Consider projects from this master plan appropriate to include in their speed loss. Develop your overlay district. I think you've done some of that already. Excuse me. Identify parcels to acquire, beginning with parcels including phase 1. Well, thank you so much. I was just thinking about that. Take a minute.
It's hard talking with these masks.
The develop a memorandum of understanding agreement with the City of Atlanta and State of Georgia, Mountain View owned properties. Try and get on the same page with the property. That's really big. You may want to talk to College Park. It took them a long time. I would say 20 years. Leverage economic development tools, tax allocation, district opportunity zones, tier 1 state jobs, tax credits, new market tax credits. A lot of those are still in place. Some of them are not, may not be. Consider a Mountain View Community Improvement District. In Aerotropolis, incorporating Aerotropolis, great CID already have very active and very supportive in this process. And of course, discuss opportunities with them. Begin discussion with Georgia Institute of Technology and other institutions regarding aeronautics research and development facilities in a technology incubator. So that's what we all thought you can get started on right away. Some of that stuff takes time, but it's great to get started the first 100 days. The long term is to develop the authority of Clayton County in partnership with the county to begin consolidating the land. I kept thinking that was number one the whole time we were doing this. Enhance the county road street safe, including wide sidewalks buffered from the road with planting, street trees, street lights, street post banners, flags welcoming drivers to Mountain View and the international terminal. As parcels are required and or private development occurs, regulate block sizes so you make sure it's walkable. This will provide development parcel enhance and desire walkability and connectivity. Attract and develop the regional luxury retail outlet. It's interesting because after I did this, I did the update for College Park on their airport city, which is now 6 West, and that same market demand. So you might be in competition for them for the outlet regional, but you probably wouldn't want me to say this, but you might have a slightly better site because you got more visibility, and there's will probably go more entertainment, which you may lose because of some of the industrial. Continue conservation of GDOT to provide an I-85 interchange at Conley Road. That would be huge. Coordinate with Aerotropolis Greenway plan for trail connectivity and expansion of Mountain View. Yeah, we were very honored to develop the Greenway plan for Aerotropolis, and that's when I kind of noticed Flint River was a great connectivity, and I know there's been a lot of work done since then. Coordinate to continue with HJAI to connect shuttle. I forgot who HJAI was. Okay, yeah. Elevated rail line from domestic international terminal Mountain View area. Yeah, our airport has one kind of glitch in it that you did get from the domestic to the international is not the smoothest. And so if you can coordinate something that would actually go into your entertainment district, that's why I kind of put that flying monorail in there. That if we ever got to the level, when you go around the world and you see some of the busiest airports in the world, they're not as busy as us, but they're doing some amazing connectivity. Do you want to hear about I wasn't asked to present on this, but I'd be glad to present on it. And do you want to have any questions you have about Mountain View before we go into the next? This is the next one. Oh, should I stop right here? Yeah, let's stop at Mountain View. Is there any questions on Mountain View?
Anybody have any questions in reference to the Mountain View presentation?
There were several mentions of rail. So does MARTA plan to send rail in that direction?
Well, let me say, I'm sorry to cut you off, but let me say
ahead.
this. Some of the conversations that you and I both have had with the Aerotropolis people was automated vehicles possibly going from the airport site into that development. So they're still playing around with that or having that conversation centered around autonomous vehicles. I did have a brief conversation at one point in time with MARTA to say that if this type of development comes, we're definitely going to be asking them to have a shuttle service or a circular service of some sort going into this Mountain View area as we continue to build it out.
Yeah, it was kind of inspirational drawn on that line, but at the same time, this was one of the Amazon sites that were being looked at, and where Amazon ended up, and I remember that was fresh in my mind when I was doing this. They could basically walk off the terminal. They built a bridge right onto their campus in D.C. So I think if you attracted something that would have a big positive, I think the state and everybody, just like you're saying, would get behind doing the right thing. And so having it in the plan kind of shows that vision, but it's definitely inspirational.
Yeah, it only makes sense to have some type of people mover or transit going from the international airport, which is a quarter mile to this development. Yeah. And you can get on that and go straight across C.W. Grant Parkway without ever touching the roadway. So that would definitely be something we would want to talk through in further detail at a later date. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I've listened over and over with plans for Mountain View. Are we really ready to do something with Mountain View? And if we are, let's get a timeline and do these recommended things that were presented to us tonight and all, because I've been hearing this for a long time.
Well, I think one of the biggest issues has been the 80 different owners trying to get enough property that's contiguous and be able to build something in certain spaces or certain areas within the Mountain View area. I know Eric, Ms. Rocker, has had a lot of conversation with people who have interest in the area, but of course we got to also fix the infrastructure that is currently being built with Conley Road realignment, as well as they're still doing the tunnel and so forth. So there's still some infrastructure needs that we need to take care of, but that's ongoing.
Commissioner. I would just like to, first of all, Commissioner Hambrick, I'm glad that you asked that question because we were just presented a plan by MARTA. MARTA did not present to us any type of plan for this project, and they know this is a project that's been before this board for a while now. One of the things that we have to do is make sure that, number one, that we're connecting all of our plans together. As you just talked about, the connectivity between the domestic terminal and international terminal. We also talked about there is infrastructure that has to be there. At some point, we have to come together as a board, and actually, as you have the short-term 100-day plan, what do we need to do first? What is the plan, overall plan from transportation to also build out? And I think that rests with the board, and I too am ready to move forward because we're missing out on tax dollars coming into our community to benefit our folks here. I think that folks will know we're serious when we actually put a comprehensive plan together that includes building out of the tunnel, finding the funding for that tunnel, connecting between the domestic and international. I would like to see staff, you've done a great job, but I would like to see our staff bring those plans forward, present it to the respective commissioner, and allow us to move forward.
Cool. And just to remind everybody, this is a conceptual plan that's only been talked about. Yeah. So to that point, or the commissioner's point, to put something together substantively and bring it before us, then that starts us to really sinking our teeth into something that we can support, get behind, and push forward.
I've been on this board 5 years. We've been talking about this plan for well over 5 years. At some point, we got to start taking the steps forward and moving forward. We have to stop talking about it, put the plans together, put it before this board, allow us to vote, get the agencies involved. That's what I'm looking for, and that's what the people are expecting.
And can I reiterate, I was on the Development Authority when we were coming up with the plans for Mountain View. So I'm going to also agree with them. It is time to move forward. We've got to move this county forward. We have great conception, and we have a great conceptual plan, but it's called implementation.
Correct.
And if we're not, if we're not inspecting what we expect, if we're not implementing plans like we should, then it's just a waste of time. It's time to stop talking. And it's time to move forward. And so, again, I want to see this coming to fruition. I was one of the people who asked for the Topgolf in the meetings. So I want to see this happen for our citizens. So, again, please don't bring us anything else unless you're ready to move on it.
Yeah. So let's also keep in mind, hold on a second, that there's 80 different owners. So the first step would be trying to get those owners, because we can change, in effect, zoning all we want, but unless they are willing to sell their property or use it for whatever we will want them to use it for, it's fruitless. But go ahead with your comment.
But I got that part.
Hold on a second, Commissioner. Go ahead, Ms. Wright.
Oh, yes. And I was going to say the purpose for the meeting tonight was to present this plan that should have been adopted in 2018 by the board. And so it's on. You can build towards it and recruit, knowing that these solid things have been agreed upon. So at your next meeting, if you will adopt this plan, it can become the gospel.
May I say something?
Commissioner Amber.
There was a mention of the 80 properties. Now, we had a vote in the last several months for those properties to be the warehouse district, or what do we call it, warehouse?
There was some litigation that we were dealing with.
Right. So are we talking those properties too? I thought that section would be called the warehouse, or would the other word that's used?
Ms. Stanford.
For warehouses and all, and then let the remaining properties be part of this plan.
Commissioner, you're 100% correct. The deal for tonight was to bring the overall master plan. We've talked ad nauseum about Gilbert Road and the build out in Gilbert Road. So we thought it was important to talk about the build out all around Gilbert Road and what that would look like. The only reason why we were bringing this back tonight had more to do with the fact that, remember, Development Authority, when it was approved, Development Authority and Economic Development Office was one of the same. Since that point in time, the Board of Commissioners, we've now created an Office of Economic Development and a Development Authority. So now we got to figure out the roles and responsibilities, because now all the land is not just with the Development Authority, it's also with the county. So we thought it was prudent that the Board of Commissioners approve this overall master plan before we moved any forward on any of the projects because we wanted to make sure both entities, the Development Authority and the Board of Commissioners, were on the same page as it pertains to the build-out of Mountain View.
Questions? Thank you for your presentation. Express Transit Talk, Ms. Gail Franklin, please.
Good evening, Commissioner Turner, fellow commissioners. Special thank you to Commissioner Franklin for having me here today. It's been about a decade since I've been before this commission. The last time I was here, it was an effort to save C-Tran. I don't know if anybody remembers C-Tran, but that was one of the projects that we were working with Marta with, and we were trying to save the system back then. I wanted to just come before you today and talk to you a little bit about Express. Express is a regional commuter service that the ATL, which is the Atlanta Region Transit Link Authority, provides. We have four park and ride lots in Clayton County. We operate 5 routes out of Clayton County. And we wanted to just let you know that we continue to operate through the pandemic. We are continuing to operate now. We've done some things to try to make people feel comfortable with riding transit. Particularly Express, we have implemented a contactless payment solution called Token Transit, where you can buy your media on your phone. You basically wave your phone over the payment kiosk and board and ride without ever touching money or cash or cash or any other card. We also offer Breeze. We have Breeze on all our buses as well. You can purchase all of our fare products on Breeze. And if you do use Breeze, we connect to MARTA rail stations downtown. We offer free transfers from the Express service to MARTA rail or MARTA bus, and you can also transfer free from MARTA back to Express. So we create those connections with those services operating downtown. Our fares are, if you're blue zone, they're blue and green zone, they're either $4, $5 for a round trip or $7 for a round trip. We offer 10 ride passes, they're $25 and $35, and we offer monthly passes, which are $100 or $125. We currently have park and ride lots, they're located in Stockbridge, in Jonesboro, in Riverdale, and at Brandsmart. We operate those 5 routes. We have a route 431 that operates from Brandsmart to Stockbridge Park and Ride to Midtown. We have a route 432, which connects our Stockbridge Park and Ride lot to downtown. We have our route 440, 441, which connects our Jonesboro Park and Ride to downtown, and we have our route 442, which connects our Riverdale Park and Ride lot to downtown Atlanta. Any information on Express you can get at www.expressga.com, and it's Express with an X, X-P-R-E-S-S. And then, or you can call us on customer service number. It's 844-EXPRESS-GA, and that's again Express with an X. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Right, any questions for Ms. Franklin?
Yes, Ms. Franklin, if you could please talk about some of the things that Express is doing to keep our riders safe during COVID, because I don't know if the community realizes that a lot of the people using Express are heading in for careers in the Atlanta area, and you all really focus on the rider experience, which allows for people to be able to find it not only how do I say it? It's definitely more enjoyable, and they choose to use Express. So if you could tell us that real quick.
Sure. So first thing we've done, besides our contactless mobile payment solution, we've installed ionization units on the bus. And what those do is they clean the bacteria out of the air and on surfaces. So those are installed in the HVAC unit on all our buses, and they run whenever the buses are in service. The other thing we've done is we pay for what we call daily cleanings of high-touch surfaces. So that would be your fare box, your door handles, any the railing when you board the bus, seat backs. We do daily cleanings of those high-touch areas to make sure that that they are wiped down every day. And then in addition, we also do additional deep cleanings every other week, where we wash the floors, clean the seats, everything every other week. So we kind of feel like we've covered all the bases. The HVAC ionization units really do a great job killing bacteria and pathogens. And like I said, those are run continuously. And then added to that, the additional high-touch cleanings and the more in-depth cleanings. As well, because of the TSA mandate, all operators are required to wear a mask, and they will continue to do that. If I'm not mistaken, the TSA mandates runs through next year. So we have the expectation that all our operators will probably continue to wear a mask even beyond that. We do hand out PPE to the operators, gloves, any hand sanitizer, anything else that they also might need in providing the service.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Franklin, I thank you for your time.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
for the
you.
information you provided us.
All right,
Thank you. We will not be having a presentation from ACA Spring Break Carnival, so that ends our agenda. Ms. Hambert?
Okay, before we end, I would like to mention this. We've been getting quite a few concerns regarding people parking on the street. For some reason, the newer subdivisions, I guess the ones that have been built from like the last 15, 20 years, there is a problem. And, police will come out and they'll, say, well, we can't bother them. It's not, the cars are not on a hill. They're not violating anything. They're operable cars or whatever. I received an email on yesterday and forwarded to Sector 1 Police, because it was in that Forest Park area that the police, the districts follow each other until it gets to certain areas in Forest Park. Instead of being covered by District 2, it's covered by District 1. But the complaint was this lady lives in this neighborhood where the cars are parked on the street on both sides. And she tried to pass through and damaged her car. And I said, let me just mention this to people, not to people, to us, and to zoning or whatever, that we need to look at that seriously and all, because and it takes away from the subdivisions. When we were discussing one of the projects that I had, and I was asking about not only having the two-car garage, but having enough space to have two cars parked behind each other, which would be a total of 4 cars outside the garage. And I believe it was something about the measurements or something. It was not within our ordinance or whatever, or zoning packet or whatever. So I'm thinking, well, we control that, so why don't we make the change and all? So you want to speak to that?
Yes, Commissioner. First of all, good evening, everyone. Congratulations. So our ordinance does prohibit parking of vehicles during certain hours. It's Section 9457, that if the road bed is too narrow to have 2 cars go through, that there's no parking between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. and 2:15 and 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Now, one thing that when developers bring items to this board for approval, sometimes the parking, they will have 1-car garage. And this is probably before this board, they'd have either 1-car garage or they'd have 2 in very little spots for people to be able to park. So some of the challenges that when we were doing code enforcement is that people would come and say, well, I have nowhere to park because I only have 1 garage, or I have 2 garages. One is full with stuff. The other car, trying to park it on the street or park it in the yard. So sometimes the officers would give discretion and say, well, okay, well, move it off the street. But the officers would enforce this code section. Now, I'll say, of course, with code enforcement now, the magistrate court is still working through backlog. We haven't even gone back to start enforcing county code ordinances as of yet. So only thing they can do is give the drivers a ticket. But there is a code section that at least prohibits people from driving and parking during the day during those hours. And then just something for the board to consider when people are bringing matters that they want to do, to at least when they present it, that there's enough room for people to be able to park on their property and not park on the street or park in their yard.
So ordinance is already in place as an enforcement issue.
No, it's not.
It's not
It's
ordinance?
not, because if you go in some of these subdivisions, and this is throughout the county, it's not just in District 2, and you can't get through the streets without, there are more cars parked on the streets in these subdivisions, especially some of the ones, like I say, in the last 15 years or so, that, and it really looks bad.
And they
you
park
know,
on the sidewalk.
and I'm looking at the houses, the older houses have these long driveways, and I know what's happening. These developers and builders are coming in, and they're trying to get the most for the buck, for their money, and they're not providing anything. They are going right with what we have at the ordinance. And to me, we need to make the change to ask them, hey, you know, instead of, and I can't remember which project, well, the last 2 projects I've had, that was my thing, but because we don't have it on the books, they didn't have to do it. You know, not only have the 2-car garage, that's a good first step, but the next step to me would be at least allow 2 cars behind each other, so a total of 4 cars at least, because families now, you know, if you have, you know, husband, wife, a child, or 2 children driving cars, then a lot of times they have to park on the street. You know, when I go to my daughter's house, if she parks outside her garage, I have to park on the street because I can pull in, but my back end is going to be hanging. So I think we need to do something about that, and I figured, I don't know which, we need to do it quickly because these builders, these developers are coming in, and that, like I say, that's what they are doing. They are doing the least.
We can certainly, and I'll talk with Mr. Ejike about looking at how, if we have, because one of the issues, as you said, Commissioner, is if you have a car that's parked, if you try to park behind them, they're overhanging the sidewalk.
Exactly.
And that's also against the ordinance as well. Yeah. So we have to kind of make sure that our ordinances, that maybe we'll have to look and see how we can make it so that someone can develop, and if they have a certain amount of parking on the premises, that they have to leave enough room for people to be able to park either 2 cars. We got to look and see how deep the lots would be to be able to make that happen. But certainly we'll look at that and bring something back to the board at a work session first before we initiate it, so that you can see and make sure that it covers what you're looking for. Right. And then we'll initiate it. It'll take about 60 days once you give us the initiation for advertising before it comes back, before we make that change, but we'll certainly look into that.
All right, thank you so much.
That's for new development.
Correct, for new.
And the case that you just gave, or the scenario with your friend who got damaged their car going between.
Well, it wasn't my friend, it was just a constituent.
Okay, a constituent.
And I just got a text message saying that, I think Chief just said something about, they went out there, their meeting, we'll be looking at the parking ordinance, so he's
right. So he's on
a
enforcement issue from that perspective, simply because you cannot obstruct the roadway on both sides and not allow emergency vehicles or other vehicles to pass freely.
That's right.
So
my thing is,
sure on those older subdivisions we're getting out there.
Well, the older subdivision, we have long driveways.
Well, there is a gap between like the older subdivisions and those that have probably been built in the last 10 years or so, that there isn't enough room on some of the lots for people to be able to park, whereas they are parking on the street and it's presenting an issue. But at least for the ones that are being built going forward, we'll make sure that we try to look at trying to get something in place so that we don't continue that problem.
Right, and I don't want to keep beating this, but just last year, a kid off East Fayetteville, there's a development there that was built within the last 10 years or so, and a kid was running for the school bus, and there were cars parked on the street, and he got hit. You know, luckily it wasn't that bad. Was in the hospital for about 2 or 3 weeks, but well, it was bad. But
that's
still,
bad.
yeah, it's just bad. But I'm just saying,
But
it's a
emergency
safety issue
vehicles
too,
can't
so
get
let's
through.
please,
Yeah.
do that, I would appreciate it.
Let's bring that back for us.
Chairman.
Commissioner Davis.
Can we just get with community development and with the developments going forward, begin to implement within the code that streets have to be of a certain width in all of our new subdivisions going forward?
Well, it's not so much the streets as it is the
parking
driveway.
Well, if the streets are widened.
Well, wide, well, streets
that will
too,
begin to
but-
accommodate much of that.
We'll certainly get Mr. Matarco's feedback on that as well.
I think that's a state
that's a
issue.
good-
Right.
The width of the road. But please, bring us back something.
We'll do.
All right, thank you, Commissioner, for that. All right, there being no other business for this board, we stand adjourned.